Right, today we're going to be looking at something that is incredibly close to my heart. You might be wondering, well, hold on a second, this is Wolf Mecha Studios, and one of the first videos he's doing is about a fantasy battle game. Well, yeah, I love mecha, I love big stormy robots, but I also have a fascination for the Napoleonic Wars, its history, the characters, the battles, basically everything about it. I think it's a fascinating period that is well worth studying, both for historical war games, which I do play. I have a rather large French army, and also just as a study for the Black Powder period, how they used to fight, the formations, the uniforms, the history of why those battles happened, the personalities, who they were. It's just all really, really fascinating and so good. But Flintlock takes an awful lot from that period. So, Flintlock is a fantasy battle game that features uh, fantasy races, so your elves, your dwarves, your orcs, your human. No, not humans. Humans aren't actually in it. We think. Hmm. But it's got humans, it's got dogmen, it's got some unusual races in there, like the dogmen. It has rabbit men, it's got trolls, it's got ogres, and lots and lots of other races as well. The undead are particularly fantastic. But the game itself turns the Napoleonic Wars on its head a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll go through a quick bit of history, and then we'll have a look at this, which is the contents of the Escape from the Dark Czar game. All right, so this is the setting for Flintlock. This is the fictional continent of Europe, which is obviously based on Europe. Now, the world of Valon has lots and lots of nations in it. It's very similar to the Napoleonic Wars in the way that it's set out. It's a little reversed, I suppose, and it doesn't really look a huge amount like Europe when you first look at it. But as we go through it, you'll obviously start to see that there are some similarities between our map and the map of Europe as it's envisioned in this wonderful fantasy universe. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the protagonists, which is the Ferak Empire. Now, this is Amorica, which is where the Emperor Mordred, the Emperor of the Elves, had a vision sent to him by Bonaparte. Exactly, telling him that he is destined for some greatness. And he then abolished magic and embraced science and invented the flintlock musket, which he armed his armies with and then went on conquering the rest of the world. And at first, the only nation that had these, and it was an absolute slaughter, and he managed to do a hell of a lot of damage. That is until he went to Catalusia. Now, Catalusia is where it's split in two. So the north half is actually still resisting, is actually part of the Ferak Empire. The southern part is actually still resisting alongside the goblins of Algarve, who've asked for help from the orcs of Brit Orca. But this very closely resembles the Peninsula Campaign, which is the first book for Flintlock. We then go to Asteria, which is Austria, and this is populated by the Dogmen. The Dogmen, who are wolves, hounds, dachshund, Alsatians, that sort of thing, but they're upright and they fire muskets. It's where Mordred, the French Emperor's mother, was exiled or lives in exile after she disagreed with her son's embracing of science and outlawing magic. We then go to Osteria. No, Krautia, sorry. Krautia, which is the domain of the dwarves. Now, the dwarves are based on the Prussians, very militaristic, and obviously very opposed to the American elves. There's still it doesn't matter what fantasy universe in. There's dwarves and elves. They just don't get along, and they are very militaristic, and the Styrians and the Krautians and the Confederation of Finkelstein actually formed the second book, Beer and Bones. And then we get to the subject of our little campaign and the actual setting for the starter set, and the third book, Death in the Snow, which is the Witchlands, which is based on Russia. Now, of course, Russia, you may remember that Napoleon went into Russia in 1812 and had a bit of a disaster. Well, Mordred does exactly the same here. He decides that it's a great idea to go to the Witchlands after he receives false intelligence from his mother, his mother in exile in Osteria, who sends him information about this sacred sword, the Sword of Chevalier, which is supposed to give the bearer untold power to be able to rule the world. And he decides, that's it, I'm off there, and I'm going to go and kick them in, and I'm going to get this sword, and I'm going to rule the world. Well, unfortunately, his plight ends in much the same way as Napoleon's, and unfortunately, he gets betrayed at Moskva, and that's kind of the end of his campaign there, because his army, or part of his army, 1/5 of his army, is smashed at Moskva, and they have to fall back and regroup. And that is exactly where we pick up in the Escape from the Dark Czar box set, which is the first starter for Flintloque. And what we're going to do now is we're going to have a quick look at the contents, and I'm going to have a quick go through the rulebook as well, and we'll see what's. Okay, and back again with the contents of Escape the Dark Czar. So as you know, this is set during a period when Mordred is trying to get the Sword of Chevalier from the Witchlands, which his mother has given false intelligence as to its location. Now, of course, he rushes off and he tries to go and get this, and then finds out it's not there. He gets betrayed at Moskva, and his army is almost destroyed. And on the retreat back, there's several cut-off bands of warriors trying to link up with the main forces and the other armies that have been sent off to other population, well, I say population, zombie centres in the middle of the Witchlands. And that's what this game is all about. So it's a great little starter. It only costs about £25. And in that you get this little booklet, which is about 24 pages long. It's not particularly big, but it does give you a nice bit of background as to the Flintloque universe, you know, the way that it works, what's been happening, who the personalities are, and why these people are trying to escape from where they're trying to escape from. And it gives you the basic rules for the game. Now, to be honest, there's not that much more in the main rules than there are in this. There's details, you know, building your army, building your characters, a little bit of additional detail on some of the phases, but you get everything you need to play Flintloque from this book. It is really spot on. It gives you pre-built characters for these guys, these 10 figures down here. So these are from my own personal collection. And you get a couple of D10s, well, a D100. So one with the 10s on and one with the single digits, which I should have included here, but I just couldn't find my dice bag before I did this. So, what are the miniatures like? Well, you tell me, because I think these are absolutely fantastic. They're all resin. So all of these are resin models. They are, for the most part, single casts. I mean, this guy came with a separate sword, and I think that is it. Yes, that is it. He was the only one who was multi-part. So the captain of the dragoons that is chasing General Sandow, who is the elf general, a rather portly elf general, who is a big fan of soup, as he is carrying a big pot of soup, which is actually his melee weapon as well. Fabulous. But yeah, these are the undeads, the zombie savants. So savant zombies are a little bit better than normal zombies. They retain a lot more information from their previous life. So they act exactly the same as mortal characters. They're still classed as undead. They are incredibly tough. They have 6 wounds each, which is pretty tough to get through in Flintloque. I'll give you a quick rundown of some of the rules in a second. But 6 wounds is pretty tough. By comparison, the 2 elves, so General Sando and little Lieutenant Ayres, the drummer boy, both have 2 wounds, so they can't take much damage. The dogman at the back, Helmut Jucken, he can only take 3, and this brute can take 5. He's an ogre. Both of those guys are from the Confederation of Finkelstein, and these 2 are obviously Frack elves, and these guys are from the Witchlands, so the domain of the Dark Czar, and they are cracking. So 10 resin models. You get the bases as well. All of them except for this guy are on 25mm bases. He's on a 30mm base. Ooh, it's going to slip. And they stick together pretty well. They're easy to clean up. The resin models are fantastic. But that's not to say that the metals, which the rest of the range are cast in, are any worse or are bad models. I've got quite the collection now. After buying this, I bought another couple of starter sets, 3 starter sets actually, to give me loads of characters and additional troop types for the Witchlands, and they are just as good. Very well cast, dead easy to clean up. The paint goes on so well. I mean, I've spent quite a bit of time on these, but you know, they look absolutely excellent. I'm so chuffed with them, and it's a great little Napoleonic game. Alright, so let's have a quick look at the rules. Alright, okay, let's have a look. So, having a look at the rulebook now. So, I'm just going to quickly go over this. I don't want to show too much, but as you can see here, the phases of the turn. Now, the turn's actually split out into a number of different phases. Initiative is very easy. Both players roll a d10, and whoever rolls highest is the guy who acts first. Now that is, of course, very important, especially if you have an awful lot of guys, so you can out-activate somebody. But the action phase, players alternate activating up to 2. So when you get to the action phase, you've got subsections here. So you've got tactical maneuver, aim, fire, reload, artillery fire, which isn't covered in here. It's in a supplement called Grape Shot. And then you've got wound resolution, maintenance. Now, with this, the action phase, in the tactical maneuver, you take up to 2 guys, and you activate them. And then your opponent takes up to 2 guys, and then activates them. And you keep going until you decide that you're done doing your tactical maneuver phase, or you've run out of guys to use. Now, why would you decide that you're done? Well, if you want to do aimed fire, you need to wait till phase B. So, in tactical maneuver phase, you might only activate 1 guy, because the other 4 guys, the other 3 guys that you've got left in your force, you want to have aim and fire. So you activate once, but your opponent then acts with as many as he wants, up to the point where he's now decided he's done, and then you move on to the aim fire phase, and then the guy who's got initiative acts with 2 of his guys to fire aimed shots, and so on and so forth. And you think, oh, that's a bit weird. It's also rather tactical, because if you have activation token, hits, shaken, or you're in base-to-base contact, you may not be able to do aimed fire or reload. So you can actually, if people are trying to do particular things with the models, you can kind of force them to miss their turn. If they've got hits on them, then they're not going to be able to reload. They're not going to be doing aimed fire. So you can kind of see what your opponent's going to try and do and work around it. It's quite an interesting way of doing it, and it works really well in game. It's such a good way of doing it. Moving, firing is very interesting. So obviously everybody gets a stat sheet. I'm going to use this guy as an example. So what have we got here? Yelligan. Which one's Yelligan? It's the guy who has... It's this dude. Right, so this fella right here has movement. So he's got a movement. He half steps at 5, he slow marches at 10, he quick marches at 15, and he double marches at 20 centimeters. If you double march, you cannot fire. If you quick march, that is as far as you can fire. So you can only fire up to 45 centimeters. Okay, not too bad. But if you want to be able to shoot it up to 60 centimeters, well, he's got to go no further than 10 centimeters. And half step, obviously you can fire up to full distance, but primary firelock can't fire that far anyway, so kind of a bit pointless. But his accuracy is minus 10. So the first number here is the score that you need to hit on a D100. So you score equal to or under. Accuracy, depending on your skill level, whether or not you're, raw, green, veteran, legendary status, that will change. So for him, being a savant zombie, he's minus 10 because he's a zombie, and his motor skills are a bit knackered. Same with his melee. His steady is based on the fact that he's tough to take down, and discipline doesn't matter because he's a zombie. So accuracy minus 10. That means between 46 and 60 centimeters, pardon me, Yelligan only has a 10% chance of hitting. Dead easy. And the power of the hit is 2. And you can see, obviously the chance of you hitting gets a lot better, but your accuracy still adds to that. So these are just generic for the firearms themselves, and then the ratings of your troops will let that go up and down. Now, what happens when you get hit? Well, your opponent rolls 8 dice, adds his steady, and subtracts the power of the shot, and then compares that to a table, which then determines how many times he's actually been hit. Now, once you've determined how many times you've been hit, then that will translate to wounds at the end of the round. Okay? So your guy's not out of action if you're hit. So if you say, for example, your opponent hits one of your guys, causes 4 hits, he's only got 2 wounds, you know he's going to die at the end of the round, but he hasn't been activated. What happens then? Well, in that case, you would then make a discipline check to see whether or not he can actually move and fire still. So he's been hit, but does he get a chance to get a shot off before he succumbs to his wounds? Chances are, possibly. And it does depend entirely on his dice roll, how well his training is, his discipline. And it's a very, very interesting way of doing it, and it works exceptionally well. But then at the end of the turn, you transfer those hits into wounds, and then the wounds come off your total wound total, and if it equals the number of wounds that you've got, you are out of there. You're done. Done. So there we go. Dead easy. Doubles make criticals or misfires, and there's not much else really. I suppose I could probably take a steady check. So there you go. So in that example before, strength 2 hit. Let's say, for example, you had a steady of 4. So you would roll a dice, say you rolled a 6. You would add his steady of 4, 10, subtract the power of 2, takes it to 8. That means he's generated 1 hit. So that 1 hit, if he hasn't already activated, might stop him from activating. And then at the end of the round, will turn into 1 wound. And there we go. It's as easy as that. That's how you play Flintlock. Now, how do you actually do scenarios? Well, there's no scenarios as such. There's points values in this, so you can have a points-driven game. That's absolutely fine. There's example scenarios in the main book, and this book gives you 3 starting scenarios using all of the miniatures from this to take you through a small storyline of these guys trying to escape from the Witchlands. But the main thing with this is you kind of make the scenarios up on your own. And what I did for the second scenario, I think the 4th or 5th time that I've actually run this, because I've run loads of games of this since I've got it. I actually added in 2 more sections. So I added in a section of elf light infantry with an officer, and a werewolf Jaegers unit for the undead with a vampire as well. And vampires are really scary, but I just amended the scenario. I added more troops in, and it was absolutely great. More troops to play with. It really flowed well. It wasn't a slow game by any means. It might seem like it's slow, but once you've played through a couple of turns, it really comes together exceptionally quick, and is very, very worthwhile having a look at. Like I say, this is Escape from the Dark Czar. Now what I'm going to do is, I know this channel's only just beginning, and I am going to get some sort of Patreon thing going as well, to see whether or not we can grow the channel a bit more and get some more things like this, maybe even some battle reports as well, because I really want to do that, show you how the game actually works in a battle report, maybe play through the first couple of scenarios and then take it from there. But I also want to cover the main rulebook as well. So what I'm going to do is just quick show you this. So this is one of 3 main rulebooks, Death in the Snow. So the first one is Catalucia, which is the war in what would be the war in Spain if you'd taken the Napoleonic Wars as a as an influence for this. The second one would be Beer and Bones, which is the war in Austria and the Croatian Empire of the dwarves. And this one is the one that directly relates to Escape from the Dark Czar. And I wanted to cover this in a lot more detail. Now I have a PDF of this because I bought it. At the time I actually bought the box set because I wanted to read up on it before I actually got the box. So what I'm going to do, because I have a spare set of models as well, once we get the Patreon up to 100 followers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually raffle this off. So I'm going to raffle this with a set of miniatures. Maybe they'll be painted, maybe they won't. I don't know, haven't decided yet. Drop a comment down below if you have an opinion on whether or not I should provide a painted set. If I do, I mean, that's absolutely fine. I don't mind doing that. I did really enjoy painting the models for this as well. But I think that's what we're going to do. So keep following. Keep an eye out for the Patreon. It will come at some point in the near future, probably the next week or so, once I get everything sorted out. And keep an eye out for more Flintlock, because I am going to be covering this in quite some detail alongside all of my mecha stuff. Don't worry, I haven't forgot about the mechs. They are coming. Alright, thank you very much for joining me. Like and subscribe, and keep an eye out for more videos, and thanks very much. Bye bye.